right. As my computer's trying to load here, let's go ahead and push the button. Yep. Welcome this morning to our county commissioner meeting. And we have the two commissioners that are here, Commissioner Ivey and Commissioner Lee. And like always, we start with a prayer, reading, or thought, and the Pledge of Allegiance. We look to the audience with anyone who would like to participate with us and offer a prayer, reading, or thought, and or Pledge of Allegiance. Anybody who'd like to help us out there? Okay, seeing that. Oh, go ahead. Which prayer? Pledge? Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to come together as fellow citizens. We are grateful for our freedoms and for this community that we live in. We pray for thy Spirit to bless us with wisdom as we make decisions that affect this community, this county. Please bless us to see what needs to be done and have the courage to do it. We're grateful for our the men and women that protect our freedoms, for law enforcement and first responders. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Please repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Thanks for participating with us on that. We have a number of items on the consent agenda, published consent agenda. On number 22, I could not get the attachment to open. So I'm wondering if we could continue that for a week.
That's fine.
Okay. I tried it on the computer and on my iPad, but any others on the consent
I
agenda?
didn't have any.
Okay. If we could hold number, let's see. Where am I at? Now on the published regular agenda, and I forgot to mention, we're moving everything to consent to be approved, ratified, or agreed to unless we pull it off. And we are in the process of pulling them off, or like the last one, continuing it for a week. On the published regular agenda, there's a number of items on there. And if we could hold number 8 and 9 and 10. Any others that you see there? Okay, so everything else then has either been approved, agreed to, ratified, or adopted as stated in the agenda, except for the ones that we have pulled off for further discussion. So with that, we'll go back.
I guess the only question would be, I know Commissioner Ainge had mentioned that he probably through his assistant, that he wanted to talk some about 10. So maybe would that be best to continue?
We could do that.
And so I had hoped to discuss it today, but I know that was, Ezra had mentioned that to me, so.
Yeah. That'd be fine, if we wanted to continue it to 10. I mean, I like it. I like what we're doing there, but.
I mean, we can talk about it, so that was my only question, but I'm happy to discuss it today. So.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Unless, he can always, let's get to it.
Let's get to it then, and we'll see where we're at.
Okay, number 8. Number 8 has a number of items on it. Let me get to it. This, number 8 is to approve the property tax actions contained in the recommendation letter.
Were you going to address number 22 on consent first?
Didn't we continue? We continued that.
Oh, just continue.
Yeah.
I thought you held it. Okay.
Yeah. So, Dave, you're taking the place
I've
of
got those.
Paul on this, right? So on the first one with the Mighty Light one, two of the boxes are checked. One is to approve, and the second box is to deny. And in looking through it, for me, they are going through and making payments on a payment basis. And so I think because both those boxes are checked, I would assume that we are going to approve and continue with the payment schedule that's been outlined.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
But,
I just saw both boxes checked and it said approve on one and deny on the other, so I want to make sure that we at least clarify that, if you're fine with that,
No,
Commissioner.
because we're going on that schedule.
Yeah.
So I was fine with that.
The second one is this, Angelina. I'm not gonna even try the last name there.
Angelina Layuga?
Let me get there. Okay. The business is all fixed up, and I recognize that the notices were mailed and so forth to the address. She's contending that and I would assume that she was what's it called when they don't file? Just assessed or estimated?
Estimated?
Yeah,
She was just estimated.
right.
She's claiming that she doesn't have any property, one, that she's renting, and second, that she doesn't have any other property either for this business entity. So I'm just a little sensitive to it in the sense that obviously falls underneath is it $10,000 rule that's on there. I don't know how to verify this one, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Chris?
Chris may have more information on that one. Looks like there was a move, she moved and didn't provide a forwarding address, for one thing, it looks like.
Yeah, Chris doesn't really have a lot more information for you. But I do recommend that you remit this one back to the assessor for an internal audit that we have the
Okay.
authority to do. And we
Okay,
might be able to come up with something by
Very good.
taking another look at it.
that'd be great.
I believe.
Oh,
Stay
I'm
close.
here now, huh?
And you're here to stay. Okay, so if you're okay with that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good to remit
So we'll
that
just
one.
kind of put that as,
I've got that.
the
as
the
noted.
second one is the Springville LLC.
Yeah, this is where I think.
This is the one where it was mailed to Indiana,
was on
apparently.
the deed.
Pardon me?
I think it was mailed to the address that was on the deed.
Yeah,
That's what it indicates.
I believe.
Yeah, there it is. There's an Indiana address on the quick
And
claim deed.
and it was mailed to the address on the deed and so forth. The only thing that I'd like to consider on this, I mean, obviously, the tax is the tax, needs to be paid, got it. I'm wondering with some of the confusion that I see in here, if we have any appetite for adjusting some of the penalties and interest that are being attached to it. We're talking about 2 years. I'm not even saying that we would adjust the whole thing with it, but there's no error on our part. I'm just wondering if we have any appetite to adjust some of those penalties and interest, because it's quite heavy, to say the least. It's
Yeah, the
about
tax is,
$16,000 worth of penalties and interest.
Well, that's your call. I mean, it's commercial property also, it's not someone's home.
right? Any thoughts, Commissioner?
Um, Oops. I'd probably be okay with that.
So I'd recommend half. That's good. Just taking off remitting half of the penalties and interest.
That would make sense. I'm okay.
Deadline, sometimes one option would be to say half of the penalty and interest is abated provided that the full payment is received not later than 30 days from
A
today's
different
date.
day.
Okay, fair enough.
So we're
I
gonna-
don't know what that date would be, but,
We could just say today's date, 30 days from today's date.
okay. That sounds reasonable, at least to me. I don't know on a
No,
business
that's
standpoint.
reasonable.
Okay. All right. And the last one, I have it as page 56. This is JMMS Enterprises. Okay. This parcel was taken off of Greenbelt. From what I understand from reading down through it, it was in production the whole time. I tried to talk a little bit to Paul about production and when construction begins, and if construction begins, can it be put back on, can be remitted back on? There is a process for that to happen, so I'm not quite sure what to do with this one, because it's a lot more complicated. And I think if I'm not mistaken, this is the one that the tax commission referred back to us. It's been grazed the whole time. They have a letter from the grazer
Didn't we
has-
hear this in a BOE?
who was, I think what happened, I don't know if it came to us on BOE or not, or if there were past deadlines and it went straight to the tax commission and it came back. I was a little fuzzy on that cycle.
I would be fine continuing this one to look into it a little more.
Yeah, one option would be to continue it and allow him to pursue his claim as to whether the rollback was appropriately assessed.
Assessed, right? Because that's,
It was back in 2016.
Yeah,
There'll be maybe a lot of issues there, but.
If you want to continue it, we can take another look at it.
that one, for me, I'd prefer this one on a continuance, because this one was one where it was interesting
Yeah.
with the timing on the rollback. And for some reason, I was trying to recall if we had heard this in BOE.
I don't recall.
My preference would be to continue that.
that'd be great. Let's continue it for more information then. So those are the four that I wanted to talk about.
Okay,
Any others?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'll move that we approve the property tax actions contained in recommendation letter 2019-15 with a remitting to the assessor, the Angelina Luca, and on the Springville LLC, remitting half of the penalty and fee with recognizing that the remaining balance is due within 30 days of today's date, and a continuance of the JJMS Enterprises.
And clarification probably on the Mighty Light that is approved.
Yes, the Mighty Light is approved.
Just clarification, the Laoga then would be continued pending that review by the assessor's office.
Pending review by the assessor's office, correct.
Okay, great. I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 2-0. Okay, Bryce, this one is, number 9, is to approve and deny an ordinance to amend the Utah County General Plan 2014 to update the goals, objectives, and policy elements.
Bryce Armstrong, Community Development Staff. So this is in response to Senate Bill 34 from the past legislative regular session, 2019, relating to a jurisdiction's requirement to, number one, have a moderate income housing plan as part of your general plan, and to add some modifications or updates if needed to be in compliant with the bill. Utah County already has a a general plan, obviously, which includes a moderate income housing plan, which we've adopted and have had to review with the state on a every biennial, every 2-year cycle. And so this is just to go through the requirements of the bill and to make sure that that our general plan, our moderate income housing plan, is consistent with those new provisions. We've also looked at a couple other little housekeeping items while we're going through this notification process. For example, a couple years ago, we went through adopting a resource management plan, and there were a couple references that we needed to refer to that plan, so we added those in at this time. This is not a complete overhaul or redo of our general plan. I should add that the bill included an adoption date of December 1st, and so we were hoping to get this a little earlier to you, but we wanted to include the regional transportation plan as part of this process, and was waiting for Mountain Lands to complete that and get that to us as long as we could, and just got to the point where we needed to get this portion approved to be compliant with that deadline, and anticipate once Mountain Lands has that regional transportation plan finalized, that we bring that back through the process and adopt, or at least look at that as in relation to our transportation element of the general plan. There is some reference to, and as you see through the proposal, that state bill recommends or states that you should consider that regional transportation plan. And so we have in the past, we have a current transportation plan that has worked in concert with that plan. So
Is that like the Trans
yes,
2030 plan or whatever?
Transplant 50, I think, is the one they're working on right now. So anyway, that's kind of what it is, just a little context. Went through, I've provided a redlined copy where we've made the recommended suggestion, or the suggestions that the staff and the Planning Commission felt would be appropriate as it relates to being in compliance with the state plan, but also recognizing our existing land use policies. It's always a challenge in the county, especially with unincorporated Utah County and our policies of trying to preserve open space and agricultural land, and the larger lot sizes, which can somewhat be a little difficult to manage when you're talking about moderate income housing thresholds and the cost of land. And so, as you recall, we went through a process earlier in the year where we adopted a land use text amendment to include accessory dwelling units. I think that's a very effective way for the county to provide inventory stock, and still protecting the existing land use policies. And so that's one good example of a policy that is included as in the state's bill that a jurisdiction could utilize, and that may be appropriate for the county, which we've already utilized, but we reference it here, so in the general plan. So can go through any questions you have. There's a lot of little information here and there, but in chapter 2, which is our moderate income housing plan, there was a lot of kind of some background context with some numbers that we've updated to be consistent with today. Last time those were looked at were 5 years ago. So I met with Commissioner Ainge yesterday on this. Didn't realize he was not going to be here. He had some suggestions of maybe adding a couple extra policies or objectives that just re-emphasize the county's long-term stance of promoting growth density in incorporated cities, and had some. So I worked on a couple additional suggestions.
So that was going to be my question: is what room do we have legally to just kind of say our plan for the county is to encourage this type of development to be incorporated into cities? Does that meet within the
I think so.
Spirit of the law the state sent down, and can we incorporate that into this to where we can still maintain our general approach?
I think we can add. We already have that to some degree. I think we can bolster that a little bit. This bill does include a reporting requirement that is, I haven't seen it yet. That's going to happen probably next year. That does talk about identifying the number of units you have in your jurisdiction if you're over a certain population. So at some point, the county's gonna have to represent that, what the number of units we have and what policies are.
Would you have any guess on what we even have?
Again, it's tough. The accessory dwelling units is so new that that's gonna be minimal. Previous efforts to comply included the provision of manufactured homes as a type of housing in all zones, and we have a number of those.
Right.
But again, you're looking at, if you're talking about cost of ownership, you also have to factor in the land, and if you
Yes,
got
I mean-
5 acres, that's gonna chew up.
$25,000 an acre.
Yeah,
Minimum.
and so, the numbers in there indicate that I think the amount of property that you could qualify for a loan to meet the thresholds that HUD identify, or, it's, what was it, less than 300,000 or thereabout, and
Well, and
so,
there's also the challenge of simply trying to qualify on raw ground anyway
yeah, exactly.
for a loan. I mean, most banks won't lend on a large parcel.
You're right, correct. We do have some Utah Housing Authority units in Spring Lake, and have maintained those. So we do have an inventory. We also provide for worker farm, I think it's called migrant farm housing.
Migrant farm housing.
And that's a use that we've identified that may be appropriate for
Will that,
industry.
will that qualify though in this provision?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. And so I don't know exactly how many of those we have. I know there were some people in the south end.
There's people in the south end, I think part of the hardest part with that, if I remember correctly, it's a 40-acre minimum to
Yeah,
qualify for that. So I think that eliminates some of your smaller parcels.
sure. But that
qualify.
can still be combined with a greater farm unit, and you could cluster those in that setting and
That's
consider
true.
it rental. And so we won't know what that.
I know of a couple dairies that do that.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
and have a couple trailer houses there that they rent to the help, so.
Right. And so if those are, rented out, those could probably qualify under that threshold. I think the numbers that were reflected in the plan talk about a rental allowance of about $1,500 a month, and that includes all housing costs. And so if we've got some rental housing out in the county that's under that threshold, then that would probably count as inventory.
So a couple questions I have for you, and I feel the same way. Commissioner Ivy has mentioned. We have for a long time developed or have encouraged development to be in the cities for the services and so on and so forth. And when I see this in the general plan, and I understand we're trying to comply with the state requirements, which puts us at some sort of odds with what's going on with how we generally would like to see planning going on. Under Objective 4, it says Utah County shall consider policies that create opportunities for housing for residents of various income levels in unincorporated areas of Utah County, which goes almost completely against what we're trying to encourage. And so I worry about that in our general plan, because if that's in our general plan, then we need to be doing something to actually uphold to that. And if we're looking at RR5 or TR5, and that's the areas that we're trying to say, this is how we're gonna do that in those zones. Anyway, I read down through this, and I can see how we have some different philosophical boundaries to get over what we're gonna do, if we're gonna start saying, okay, maybe we're gonna back off the 5, according to what I see here, then maybe we should start backing off the 5 1/4 acres if we're gonna have lower income housing in the unincorporated areas. So I'm not
And we're
sure
gonna
how
have
to balance that.
The problem for me with that is if we go to that method, then we're getting to a lot size that takes away the opportunity for septics and other
Yeah.
things, and then the county's going to have to start to put in infrastructure and sewer and water lines, and all, you think your property taxes are going up now. Whew.
Sure. Let me
Try
Yeah.
having to have all that incorporated in.
Maybe I can comment specifically on that one. Again, if you look, the wording is residents of various income levels, and so that doesn't necessarily meet the definition or include the definition of moderate income housing, but that is language from the state bill. The recent accessory dwelling unit exercise or amendment we went through is a great example that would fit this, because again, a general plan is just a guide.
Right.
Policies, and then the teeth comes when you adopt a land use ordinance. or a zone. But this says Utah County should consider policies that create opportunities for housing, and so for residents of various income levels. The
So,
example of an accessory dwelling unit now allows the person to choose to pursue that, get a permit for the one, and then we have a potentially even a moderate income housing unit that could be there that is an opportunity for a resident to.
And that's a great example, but it is under the objective of encouraging a fair share of affordable housing.
Sure, sure.
And so, I mean,
That's probably the most appropriate strategy.
Right.
In, I'll let Commissioner Ivey get his comment real quick. Commissioner Ainge had the same concern, and so we actually thought of or he wanted me to work on some additional language that still re-emphasized our longstanding policies. I came up with an additional objective to add, as it would be objective policy D. It says Utah County should continue policies which encourage and support, maybe even use the word promote, moderate income housing within incorporated municipalities near essential services, including employment, transportation options, commerce, education, and healthcare.
okay, so, and I really like that provision, and then my thought with that is if we're part of the requirement under the laws to provide opportunities, and then we have to do some type of reporting, why can't we have that as a specifics written into our general plan, and then as a reporting mechanism during the course of a year when a city incorporates a portion of unincorporated, and that becomes a higher density dwelling unit that meets this medium or low income, why can we not count that?
After it's been annexed?
Yeah.
I
As part of if what the law is requiring is that we create these opportunities. So through our general plan, we're creating these opportunities by allowing areas to be annexed into cities, which is also in conjunction with our general plan. Why can't we count that as part of our fulfilling our responsibility for creating opportunity? Because we're doing that. But by allowing the annexation to occur, we're allowing a piece of property that was at a much lower density to have a higher density and create more affordable housing opportunities on that piece of property. So technically, according to the law, we are creating that opportunity in the county.
and that could be written in as a policy.
It doesn't, it's
annexation
not like they're
policies are
no
pretty
longer
open.
part of Utah County. It's part of Utah County. It's just incorporated into a city. So within our county, we're truly creating that. We're just doing it differently.
That's a great point, and we actually have some wording that kind of contemplates that. A couple points. We don't know what the reporting is going to look like yet. It's new. Let me read the language. It says the legislative body of each county of the first, second, or third class, which has a population of the county's unincorporated areas of more than 5,000 residents, shall annually, and it goes on to review their plan, et cetera. Then it goes, a description of the progress made within the unincorporated areas of the county to provide moderate income housing demonstrated by analyzing and publishing data on the number of housing units in the county. Doesn't say which.
It just, yeah, it says
that
in the
are-
county,
that
so
at or
we're still in the
below
county.
80% of the adjusted median family income, 50%, 30%. And so that's under, the unincorporated threshold of 5,000. So it's kind of contradictory. Is it just unincorporated, but it didn't specify
It
that?
doesn't,
So
for me, it doesn't specify it there. If it doesn't specify it, then we can apply it as the county at large.
I'm hoping that this next legislative session, there'll be some additional clarification on this.
That
Rel-
makes me nervous, is that they would go against us. I'd rather go with
Relative
our
to,
interpretation of it looser.
relative to the point of the annexation policy, in my meeting with Commissioner Ainge, we came up with an additional objective under Chapter 1, Objective 2 that says we'd add a policy D, which would read, residential development of areas of unincorporated Utah County lying within a municipality's adopted annexation policy declaration should occur within or consistent with the appropriate municipality and its development standards. And so I think that is kind of, in Commissioner Ainge's eyes, taking a stance that that's part of our plan, is to have policies that encourage that or even promote that. And if maybe even go as far as reporting.
I think we report on it.
Again, that may be
See
a
what happens.
a rezone is what was our part of it, and then the actual development and construction happens in the city, and that's subject to their policies and whether or not that's zoned for affordable income housing.
You know,
moderate
and
housing.
maybe we have to look at our incorporation policies and come up with provisions when we allow for that, that a percentage or a portion of that has to meet these requirements.
Yeah, and,
And that's a thought, right? It's,
sure.
is there a way to tie those two together?
Again, once it's in
And
the
I'm
city,
not sure if we can do that or not. I'm kind of looking
Once it's
at
in the
our
city,
legal
it's-
team to see
it's-
if we can make that part of a provision of incorporation or not. But can we work with, because to me, this is working with our cities to address a problem that the state said
sure.
we need to address.
And there's,
And the city's got to do it as well, right?
correct.
And so we're just simply teaming up with them and working with them to address the issue.
If you've looked in some of the language, I've tried to insert, the county would support and take a regional approach in these policies, and that contemplates working with cities.
And to me, this is where potentially COG could form a much more important role, because this is, to me, an issue we should be addressing
Yeah.
at COG and saying, how are we working together with our municipalities to address these type of laws? And can we come up with some standard policies that allow us to work together? So that, for me, my biggest fear is I just don't want the county to have to start building sewer plants and running all that kind of infrastructure. I like the model we have, and I want to keep it. And so I'd like to find a way to work within the means of the law to do that. And if we have to, we'll go to the legislature here in 2 months and fix it.
I don't
Yeah,
think there's
we can.
anything that's been proposed that would kind of get us to that point, or, again, this is just advisory, and we've tried to craft this so that it does recognize the longstanding land use policies of the county.
No, I think I really, with the addition that Commissioner Ainge added there with that provision, I think we're getting really close. And I
So-
appreciate what you guys have put together there.
So we need to pass this to be in compliance before December 1st, but it's still going to be kind of open for
Oh, yeah.
modification as we go along. Because,
Sure.
I mean, there are areas in here that I think that they compete
Mhm.
and that we have some problems with, but,
Yeah, we could, again, we anticipate bringing the general plan back as a whole to address that regional transportation plan, and we can advertise it, that, we may be looking at some more elements in here if needed, so.
I appreciate that. I personally would be okay passing this today with the addition of the written provision that Commissioner.
There's one more addition that he had suggested,
Because that was
um,
mine. I had the
actually two
same
more.
thought.
and so, if you want me to share those other two, that they're similar, and just in
Yeah.
different locations. In addition, under Chapter 2, which is our moderate income housing plan, there's a paragraph that is entitled Strategies Towards Lower Cost Development in Moderate Income Housing. We would add a number 16 strategy, which states promote the location of new moderate income housing units within incorporated municipalities near essential services, including employment, transportation options, commerce, education, and healthcare. So it's kind of similar to the previous language, but
Mhm.
in a different spot. And then, again, in Chapter 2, it talks about the thresholds for the rental amounts. Commissioner Ainge felt that any rental, especially after going through our accessory dwelling unit, will probably qualify as moderate income housing. And he kind of wanted to bolster our plan to reflect that feeling. And so, on page 13, at the end of the first paragraph, which ends, currently it's proposed to say a household earning the moderate income figure listed above, which goes through the HUD formula, would qualify for rental housing of approximately $1,590 per month for all housing costs. And then it's suggested that we add the following sentence. It is anticipated the majority of rental housing units located within unincorporated Utah County will qualify as moderate income housing as referenced above, just to kind of help us as we approach the reporting. And then the last one, on page 10 of the general plan, in the same section, we needed to change one word from, we were talking about the population projections that were done in 2014.
Mhm.
And it says that it is projected At the time, it was projected, and we just need to change that to was, because now we're past that time. So is the was on page 10.
Okay.
And I didn't hear back from Commissioner Ainge. I didn't know if he was comfortable with those, as we discussed, so I sent that to him yesterday.
They seem reasonable to me.
Okay, I'd make a motion then, if we're good,
Yep.
ready for that. I'll move to approve regular agenda item number 9 with the noted additions from Commissioner Ainge and staff.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 2-0. Okay, number 10 is to authorize the Public Works Department to implement the Bridalveil Falls Concept Plan and authorize Richard Nelson to sign all land use applications, permits related to land use documents on behalf of Utah County.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We've seen this Bridalveil plan talked about over the last couple of years. Excuse me, maybe just a little bit of back history on it for the general public. The county purchased this land about 5 years ago from the Grow family. They were actively trying to sell it. There had been some interest in developing the area. The commission at the time decided that it would be in the best interest of the county to purchase it so that the site would be preserved for future generations of Utah County residents. There was a development plan that was approved back in, I believe, the 1990s that we acquired with that site, or with that purchase of the property. We've looked at the new site plan that you have before, the concept plan that you have before you. We would need to go back through site plan approval through the community development so that we're compliant with all of the rules and regulations, because the proposed concept plan, some of those elements were not included in that 1990 plan, so we would go back through, and that's why you see on there for me to be able to sign that application through for the permits and things of that nature. Questions that you have, I know I've had conversations with both of you on different elements of the concept plan, items that you'd like to
Yes.
discuss today, or?
You know, thank you for this. I mean, this is good. We're finally starting to do something up there in Bridalveil Falls. As you know, the conversations that we've had, this is a concept plan. It's not the final plan.
Correct.
There's lots of, I mean, for instance,
This
there's.
is a high level
Yeah,
look at it.
there's
so.
there was some soft commitments to a widow that we had made, you know, for a few little things, minor things compared to what this high level plan looks like, that I'd like to make sure and incorporate. There are some other areas that, as we discussed, are possibilities, you know, for maybe the finalization of what this looks like, in what can be done. But I think overall, I mean, it's a start for us, and that's the point, is to start on a process of doing something up there that makes sense.
I appreciate it. I like the concept plan, generally speaking. You know, the only thing I recognized, we had maybe a little bit more seating area or something somewhere, but it looks like we can incorporate that in as we get down into the actual detail of it. But I think within a budgetary range that you've outlined, and within your conceptual plan, for me, this gets what we're after at the falls. We're getting an enhancement that preserves the natural pristine of the falls and makes the falls the center focus, and gives people an opportunity to see that safely and enjoy it. And
A couple of things here, maybe just to point out on this concept plan. One of them is a walkway, stairway that connects to that upper parking lot that's up on the highway. Right now, folks can pull off the highway, but they can't access the falls if they,
That's a
at
problem.
least not in an easy way.
Things slide
So,
down.
Yeah, so that is something that's included there. Also would include a restroom facility on site, something that we don't have currently there now. That
Right.
would include some open space and some additional parking areas and just park space that they can enjoy the falls.
And like we talked about the other day, there's some safety issues that we can move a few things around or consolidate a few parking lots into one area and temporarily, I don't know if temporary is the word, but do things so that we don't have traffic flowing through areas where we have pedestrians walking back and forth. And I mean,
To
there's some
minimize
areas that I think
those activities, yeah.
that could enhance what we're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
Mhm.
Okay. And I like what you're doing down here too with trying to get the bike traffic to go around and having that little turn right there,
That-
so that it because they like straight shots.
And that's been a conflict point.
It's always been a
As the
conflict
bike
point.
traffic comes down the canyon, you've got all the spectators looking at the falls.
Yep.
So you got a lot of stopped pedestrians with wheeled traffic trying to come through it. So part of this would reroute that around to the north so they wouldn't have the conflict points.
That's great.
Okay,
Okay, I'll move that we authorize the Public Works Department to implement the Bridal Veil Falls concept plan as outlined in regular agenda item number 10.
and I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. That passes 2-0. Okay, I know we need 11. Well, wait, maybe I don't. That's the purchase exchange. Oh, these are. Okay, which ones do we need? Dave?
12, 13, and 14.
12, 13, and 14. Okay,
Motion to strike regular agenda item number 11.
and I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 2-0.
Motion to approve regular agenda items number 12, 13, and 14 by setting the date, time, and location for closed meetings as outlined for today's date at this location at the conclusion of our regular business.
And I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye, that passes 2-0. We have no work session. Any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into our closed meetings. Thank you.